4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, hello, hello. This is Giuseppe Ganci and my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Welcome to Talk Recovery. Hey, Darren, how are you?
I'm excellent. Good to be on the show. Good to be on Talk Recovery today.
Yes, we get to do this every Thursday.
I was just listening to the Vancouver Co-op Radio station yesterday, and they just celebrated their 46th birthday, I believe.
46th anniversary. Yes, they did.
Big shout out to the People's Radio Station of Vancouver. Good to be a part of it.
They give us an hour to talk about what we talk about here every week. One of the very few shows that gets to talk about recovery during an overdose crisis, so we're pretty proud of that. And they're also doing a fundraiser. Co-op Radio isn't sponsored by any big corporations, so if you like our show, make a donation in name of Talk Recovery Radio to coopradio.org. And one day we're going to get back in the studio. I hope and I swear we get to, but they also need to update some equipment at the studio too. So make that donation, please.
Yes.
So yeah, we get to talk about recovery every Thursday. And for those of you that have been following Facebook and some on Twitter, we like to talk about some hot issues in the recovery world. And yeah, there was a big deal. We petitioned, as part of it, I guess just a little part of it maybe. But we did a petition. You've heard it here before in the show that there's this culture that treatment for some reason has become the enemy when it comes to the overdose crisis and our addiction crisis, and everyone on our social medias have replied, oh, like you're like conspiracy theory, and everything's supported. And I'm like, no man, I've been to stakeholder meetings, and there's just this underbelly darkness that people high up really believe that treatment doesn't work for addiction treatment. And that darkness came to light in an article that I remind everybody was 30 days old. I was only brought aware of it like last week. So it had been online for a month, where senior health officials were saying that harm reduction is the only response for the overdose crisis. Treatment, bed-based treatment, is not effective. That's a pretty big deal to say, because A, it's untrue. There's enough evidence out there that shows everything. I was joking with somebody, if I had enough money and enough clout, I can make elephant riding evidence-based treatment for overdoses. Like, that's how insane that statement was. And so we're Recovery Day BC, which I'm the chair of, and we have a committee, and we decided, no, like, that's it. Like, we're done. We're done being like ridiculed and just these accusations that our lived experience doesn't exist. And so we did a petition online. You can go to recoverydaybc.ca to look at it. 2,000 people signed it within a couple of days. But Darren, I'll tell you what was beautiful. Hundreds, I didn't count. There could be, I don't know, over 1,000 maybe. Definitely thousands of comments between Facebook of lived experience recovery stories that have been silenced, because we all go back to life after we do rehab and become normal, productive citizens, and we're not out picketing, we disappear. And so because we disappear, people don't think we exist. Well, you know what? We came out and we showed that we exist.
The anonymous, movement, if we can call it that, where, each individual sort of learned that, we don't share that we're addicts or alcoholics or people in recovery. It's private. We have to protect our our livelihoods and how people judge us. And so, just keep it in the rooms. And it hurt us. That's been hurting us, because like you say, like there's so many of that lived experience that, I'll walk right by you down the street and would have no idea. And it's sad because, it's left all of these, eggheads and politicians and people that sign the papers of the reforms, to think that, this abstinence or recovery, like, doesn't work.
Yeah.
And abstinence, like as part of the recovery, is just part of it.
Part of it.
Harm reduction is part of it. We've voiced this so many times
Every Thursday, and it's still like
this.
So can you imagine somebody in the health authorities saying insight is ineffective and not evidence-based? Could you imagine? Like it would be the sky would fall. The sky would fall. That article was online for 30 days. It's still online today. No retraction. The Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Sheila Malcolmson, actually backpedaled, and it's like, oh no, like, what are you doing? Take responsibility. Like, can you imagine a mom with a 17-year-old kid who doesn't have an uncle in AA, who doesn't have a dad that's an alcoholic, who has no idea about recovery, and she walks into a health authority clinic and they're like, hey, yeah, treatment doesn't work, just harm reduction works, don't send your kid to treatment. Could you imagine? That's what this is about. This has always been about people that show up to the doorstep of a health authority clinic should be giving people that use drugs every option. This is harm reduction, this is recovery, this is 12-step based, this is non-12-step based. These people pray to Jesus. This place they use safe supply. Where do you want to go? Somebody in the health authority should not be able to tell somebody, nope, these options off the table. You're only going to do this. And that is what this is all about. And the fact that, some people were like, what's the big deal? I'll tell you what's the big deal. It's a big deal to that mom with a 17-year-old kid that needs rehab. That's why it's a big deal. And if you don't think it's a big deal, you should be ashamed of yourself. Every pathway should be funded. Every pathway should be taken care of, and every pathway should be available. And so we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. There needs to be a retraction. So Sheila, you know what, if you see this, hopefully you do, or if your followers do, it's pretty gross that all we've gotten so far is backpedaling. Oh, it was taken out of context. I don't see how you can take out of context treatment is ineffective. I just don't see how that was taken out of context. So the higher ups better do something, because this is the darkness of the healthcare system. And I'll tell you what, everyone's wondering why there's an overdose crisis. People feel like second-class citizens when they try to access addiction treatment services. That's why. And you know what? People are online actually said, oh, we need to audit every recovery center in BC. Yeah, you're right. Let's do that. Let's audit every recovery center in BC, and let's audit every harm reduction clinic in British Columbia, because none of them are regulated when you really look at it. So let's put regulation in for the entire continuum of care. And let's find out why there's 7,000 overdoses.
Well, I have kids, and I'd hate to think that they're going to end up on the streets using, but I'm not dumb enough to think it's impossible to happen. And I just think, what is our health system going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years under that, narrative, where addiction isn't family, the family dynamic. It isn't mental health. It isn't, forms of depression and trauma. It's just the drug. So here's another drug, to lessen the harm a little bit. And that's it.
And that's it.
Addiction is so much more. That the umbrella of recovery, it isn't abstinence or harm reduction.
Yeah.
Abstinence is in there. And in there, people can make decisions. And in harm reduction, they can access many different options. but when we keep going this side by side,
Exactly. Yeah.
it
Twitter
worries
was insane. You should have seen Twitter. Yeah, she's right. Treatment doesn't work. It's just unbelievable. So I got, last
people don't
soundbite.
succeed for sure.
Support is a reciprocal action. Like we need to support each other. Every pathway works. Okay, but you know what? They're not going to work when we're all fighting. So I'm just completely shocked that there's an entire community whose Twitter handles are all about the safety of drug users, and hardly any of them, and I looked, shared anything about the harms that were caused to drug users because the health authority says treatment is ineffective. It's just unbelievable.
Government,
It's sad,
you're
really
doing
sad.
it wrong.
So sign the petition. It's not done. You know what? The outcome so far has been the unity amongst the recovery community. To everyone that had the courage to share their story on Twitter and Facebook and in the petition comments, like, you exist, we exist, whatever your story is. You know what? Thanks for saying that treatment helped save your life. And if treatment had nothing to do with your recovery, congratulations, man. Like, that's awesome. But for a lot of people, it is pretty effective. So to take that option away and to minimize people's lived experience should not be okay. When 7,000 people have died from overdoses. So share the petition. It's at recoverydaybc.ca. And yeah, to Interior Health, you fix it. Like now, fix it. Their communications person called me. I said, this isn't a communications problem. This is a policy problem. Like, get away from me. So that is Talk Recovery Radio. Fix it, Interior Health, fix it.
As a result of Talk Recovery Radio and 7 years of shows on Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5, our catalog is filled with people who don't abide by how the government would help us. They just know the situation. They know addiction. They know how to help. They know how to treat each individual struggling in different and unique ways, using the whole umbrella. Anytime we talk to somebody, they're not against anything. They don't say this doesn't work, only my way works. They just say, I have a form of solution, and it has succeeded, for some. So let's put another option out there, and we get to do that again today.
And if you truly believe treatment is ineffective, I invite you to come to the next Recovery Day BC in-person event, stand on that stage and tell all those people treatment doesn't work, recovery doesn't work. I invite you to, okay? So let's get on with our show. Darren, we talk to experts around the world about recovery issues, and today we've got two topics, one guest, so we're pretty excited. He's going to be on the show for the full hour, what's left of it anyway. So Darren, who are we talking recovery with today on Talk Recovery Radio?
I'm excited. We get to talk recovery with Jesse Harless. His mission is to change the addiction and mental health recovery world one conversation at a time, which is the epitome of what our show is about as well. He's a leader and facilitator in the addiction recovery mental health space, CEO of Entrepreneurs in Recovery, and an author. And we're going to talk about your new book, If Not You, Then Who? Harness Your Strengths to Shift from Addiction to Abundance. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, we got you for the full show. So that gives us the opportunity to learn a little bit about yourself, your story. Clearly your message is, everybody's got one. Everybody's got a story, and it's neither bad nor good. It's just worthwhile and important. So I assume yours is just as important and worthwhile. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into the position of education and experience that you have been?
Yeah, addiction has been a family tradition. So, my father was an alcoholic. He got addicted when he was in the Army during Vietnam, and it just got passed right down. And my uncles were alcoholics, my grandmother. So it kind of ran in the family. Not that it has to do that for you to become addicted, because I believe we live in an addicted world in general. But, for me, it was just perfect climate, perfect soil for me to become addicted eventually. And that's what happened. And so, my first drug was fantasy. And what I mean by that is my first drug was internet pornography and online gaming at 11 and 12 years old. And from there, I just found ways to numb out from the trauma and the pain of my father leaving at 4, never coming back, being in a coma, having these different, my father was in an accident when I was 4 years old, left him in a coma for 22 days, all related to his drug and alcohol use. So, it caused a huge ripple, ripple of pain and hardship in the family. So, it just, by the time I hit my 20s, it was just, there was no reason to even live. That's literally how I felt. It just was just to get numb out, and this was my path, and this is what was going to happen until one day I was caught, and that changed everything.
So the caught thing, I mean, that gives those surrounding you a little bit of proof. Oh, okay, that's what's happening. But you describe your addiction from 11, 12, and it's not often, out front and there for everybody to see. What is family? What are friends? What are the people around you saying? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with Jesse? Like, are people just throwing, assumptions out there, or are they just being quiet?
So at that age, at 11, 12, 13, they would just say I was shy. They would say, oh, he's just shy. He's just sensitive. He's just shy. And the thing is, I had a million things to say. And it was true. I was a highly sensitive person. I felt the energy around me. I felt what was happening, and I wanted to numb that out as well. So people just took me as being shy, quiet, introverted, all these things where to some extent were true, but not exactly true. And so, yeah, that was pretty much it. People just thought I was shy. And then eventually when I hit my 20s, that's when people, I hit it. I was what you call a functioning addict. And so people didn't know when I get arrested, it was a big surprise. And I think there's many people who are living like that now. I heard a stat recently. It says 75% of people who are addicted are working full time. 75% of people who are addicted are working full time. So, I'm sure there's a lot more out there who are going to listen to this and say, I think that might be me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to avoid, the addicted to just a really hard drug, we've been through decades putting these, categories of what's the worst, I like that people are addicted. That means they're disconnected at home. That means they're lying or ashamed of themselves. Like, it all means the same thing about, how we're existing in our lives. And that's just sad. And, I hope that our show, sort of pushes those buttons for people, not waiting for, to get caught or to lose the job, or, the big catalyst event that puts it all out there. And we have these conversations to trigger, some similarities or some reference for people, and also give them options, to reach out. So tell us about, if not you, then who? I love the title, but I really sort of, I make my own little idea from what it means, and what is the bottom line of that title?
Yeah, the bottom line is really, my story is about, overcoming and resilience. So if not you, then who is about, I thought someone was going to come and like change the landscape of addiction recovery. When I was like 10 years in recovery, I thought, oh, the government's going to come save us. We're going to have money funded to sober homes and treatment centers and all this stuff is going to happen. And I also thought like someone's going to come and tell me how to live my life and become a business owner and all this stuff. No, it's you. If not you, then who? No one's coming to save you. It literally is you. You are the person. So we need to harness our strengths. We need to harness our intuition and our heart to move out there and use the things that we were given. When we were out there using, we were getting anything we wanted at any time. We made it happen no matter what. So that's the same type of energy we need to put into our recovery. So if not you, then who? It's you are the one. Even when I say recovery, by the way, just like we were just alluding to, addiction is a spectrum. You have people who are shooting fentanyl, and you have people who are addicted to power and addicted to unhappiness. So you have this spectrum of addiction where you see people who, wow, these people are really bad in addiction. But here's what people don't understand. Addiction to control, addiction to codependency, addiction to protection from pain. This is an addiction too. That is a plague that is also playing out. So, if not you, then who is for everyone? It's for everyone who is in that place where they're like, I'm not living up to my full potential. And so this is really what it's about. And it has my story, because in recovery, we love stories. And then it also has a toolkit.
There's
Yeah.
so much I want to ask you on here. There's another part of your title though. So it's if not you, then who? Harness your strengths to shift from addiction to abundance. So what does that mean? I haven't heard that one in all of our 7 years. So this is something new, which excites me when I hear something new. So what does that mean in essence of the book?
Yeah. So a
The
lot of
last
people,
piece.
yeah. A lot of people think abundance means wealth, money, riches, gold, Bitcoin. No. Well, abundance means that you have your fridge full of food. Abundance means you can walk out in nature and breathe in the fresh air. Abundance means you have a recovery team of people you can call and be your authentic self with. So harnessing your strength, which I believe the universal strength of people in addiction and mental health recovery, is resilience. So harnessing a strength like resilience can lead to abundance, meaning that I can pick myself up today, and I can go out and I have food in my fridge, and I have friends I can call, and I can go out and have my health. That's abundance. Yeah, it can also include wealth, but that's not true abundance. Abundance comes from within.
So it's all quality of life, which I love, because how is this going to help your overall quality of life? I mean, we have this really bad what's happening nowadays is we're treating addiction like a triage, like, okay, let's just fix you today right now with this intervention, to make sure you're breathing, which is super important. But it's like, wait a second, like we can't just stop there. Like there needs to be this overall view of quality of life, because we all deserve to have the best quality of life, and not to say this quality of life is the standard. That's elitism in my opinion, but just the idea to say, oh, that's just where you're at, so that's where you're going to be, I find very stigmatizing. It's like everybody can be lifted. So your story then, you have your own personal story of addiction, your own personal story now of recovery. So tell us a little bit about that. So how did you end up being arrested? And not to get into the details why, unless you want to, but like, how did you end up there to being on a radio show talking with a book? Like, how did that happen? What went on there for you?
Yeah, so kind of like I mentioned briefly in the beginning stages, there was this trauma that happened at 4 years old, which left this feeling of abandonment. So I had this fear, this scar, this trauma of abandonment when my dad left at 4, he never came back. So that kind of played out throughout my life. So I found ways to numb out. Like I mentioned, when I was younger, it was addiction to internet pornography and games. And eventually it became addiction to getting outside myself. But in my 20s is when it all changed. That's when my father died at 20. When his drug of choice was cocaine. And when he died, I tried cocaine for the first time the night he died. And I can tell you that I felt love for the first time when I experienced that drug. It sounds sad, but that's what I felt. I literally felt like I had arrived. This was my moment. And I would chase that from 20 to 22. And what happened was I was going to the city. I grew up in Lowell, Mass, but I was living in Raymond, New Hampshire. And I would drive from Raymond to Lowell to pick up my drugs. And what ended up happening is the person I was going to use with, he actually got arrested. So I figured out a way to use the internet to order prescription opioids, prescription medication in unlimited quantities, so that I could just not have to deal with driving to Lowell anymore. I could just pick up the packages and numb out. So this is
Makes sense.
It makes sense, right? I thought I was being smart, but for anyone who's doing this right now and listening to me, you might want to stop, because here's what happened. One of the where I was ordering from was tapped by feds. So it was only a matter of time before the Postal Service, the Federal Post Service was going to find out. And that's what happened. So it's obviously, I'm making a long story short, but the bottom line is I found an easier, softer way, I thought, to get what I needed to feel okay. Because this wasn't to get high. This was to feel okay. I was working a full-time job. This was just to feel normal, to take these Oxycontin and Vicodin. So so that's what happened. And then, it's kind of a long story, but the short version is I went to pick up a package. I was arrested. They let me go. And then I went 10 months to Florida to do the geographical cure to fix my addiction. And Florida was a hellhole on earth for me. I got down there and I could get pills everywhere. It was just a mess. And I had an overdose experience, came back to New Hampshire, was arrested in 2 weeks. And at 22, that's when it began.
Was it through prison? Was it intervention? What was the influence that progressed eventually into your recovery?
I mean, the threat of spending my 20s in prison. They told me straight out I was going to spend 7+ years in federal prison if I was to use, if I was to screw up, and anything would happen. So when at 22, when I was arrested and arraigned in court on December 22nd, 2005, they told me if I was to screw up, I was on federal probation, I was going to spend my 20s in prison. That was not a threat. That was a fact. And
Right.
so I went all in. I didn't go to rehab. I didn't go to drug court. So I'm probably an anomaly in some ways, because I definitely had withdrawal symptoms, but they didn't tell me to go to rehab. They didn't prescribe that. I was to work full time. It was to go to the meetings, get my paper signed, meet my drug and alcohol counselor, and meet my mentor. And that's
I gotta ask you a question here, because this is important from this narrative that you're doing, and I'm stuck in making, like, I can't make a decision on how to support this cause. A lot of people say what you just did should not happen. Like, people shouldn't be ordered to treatment. People shouldn't be ordered to meetings. Like, you shouldn't have even gone to jail. Like, drugs should be legal, safe supply provided. So here's a guy that's, had to go to the black market because there is no safe supply where you're at. And then you get caught, and then you get told by a judge that you have to go get this piece of paper signed. I'm kind of like, I don't think people should be forced to do that. But then I hear your story and I'm like, but it helps some people. So the question is, I don't know if you know with the climate right now for harm reduction, recovery, and addiction, but the push is safe supply, drugs should be legal, and nobody should ever be mandated ever by the courts to do a recovery pathway. So your lived experience, what do you think of that?
Good question.
It's hard, eh?
So it's not a simple answer. It's not a simple question, but I'll tell you this, that I truly believe what we're doing today is not working, period. We lost over 89,000 people to overdose in the last year. So just to overdose, we're not talking about alcohol and other drugs. So we have a problem here, a serious one. And what we're doing is not working. We need to address it tomorrow, right now. So in order to do that, we have to be progressive with our solutions. So we got to really look at the original models of addiction and what we call addiction, what we think of as of addiction. So when we're looking at new therapies and treatments that are coming out, whether it's with plant medicine and different other aspects of what could really start to help people to find a place of recovery, because recovery is a broad word. Some people say they're in recovery and they're drinking every night. So it's really, what is that? What does that mean to you? And what is working well for you? And it's individual to each person. We still have this idea of like this abstinence model only, and that's obviously not working very well. So there is definitely another way that we can approach this. And obviously we need to do it now. And some of the things that I talk about, even in my book, are pretty progressive, and things that we need to start approaching people as human beings, not as broken mental health, pathological, broken people, and realize these are very, very resilient people that have many strengths, that if they had another way, just like, you don't ask a fish to climb a tree, it's not going to happen. So we have to find new solutions that can help more people. And right now we have a model that continues to stay the same. So there's, that's my take on that. We just need more options.
We've been saying that from the start. Our people in government and they're making up this, just trying to find this one thing that it's going to be the token solution for addiction, and nobody's talking about, let's all get in the same room. What do you have to offer? What do you have to offer? How can we work together? Because we're going to run into so many unique and different circumstances, and to think that what their ideas is going to work for everyone is just ridiculous.
But you need to offer all of them. But you need to offer them. I mean, they all got to be there. Like, you know what? Like, these are the options. But especially if you're committing a crime, but yours was drug related. It's not like you're robbing banks. I'm looking at your bio here, so I'm not sure if this is in the book, but there's the what is this called? Fears Toolkit. Is that in the book?
Yeah, half the book is about that. Yep.
Okay, well, half the book. Okay, well, let's talk about that for sure. So FEARS, acronym for focus, elevate. appreciate resilience and self-care. So what's going on there? What is this toolkit for? And is it like pen to paper?
Yeah, so I've been in recovery the last 15 years. And so what
Okay.
I've learned is that what works for most people didn't work for me. So I started to learn from mentors. And many of these mentors were entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs were doing certain things and certain morning routines and certain nighttime routines and practices that when I started to apply them to my life got progressively better. My anxiety started to go away. Like anxiety that was there 10 years in recovery that I thought was automatically supposed to go away because I was in recovery. That doesn't happen. So I started to create this toolkit and use this toolkit, which wasn't called fears at the time, but it turned into that. So focus, elevate, appreciate, resilience, self-care. This is 30 actions. And some of them are very simple actions, but within each chapter of my book, so I have 5 chapters that are dedicated to fears. So one chapter is called Focus on Your Recovery. That is about focusing on your recovery, putting your recovery first. I've never seen anyone fall or fail or relapse who's ever focused on their recovery. I literally have not seen it in 15 years that have focused. And what I mean by that, not just like going to AA, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about focusing on self-care, focusing on your spirituality, focusing on what works for you in your recovery and writing it down physically in a to-do list. And then second is to build a recovery team. So have 3 to 5 people that you can call no matter what. This is not going to be your mom, most likely. It's going to be people that you can share with that are safe. And then finally, finding purpose in recovery. That's the first step of focusing on your recovery. It's those 3 elements.
I love it. I love it. And, you know, back to that, the title again, if not you, then who? You know, because you mentioned part of your story isn't, you know, rehab and you know, counselors and a team of interventionists and this, like, it was, I mean, I think I can relate to. I just could not picture myself being able to put on some mad dog face and go to jail and get through it. Like that would have terrified me. To change what? I mean, who knows? You know, I don't have that experience, but it gives you the proof of, you know, like how much of your own resiliency motivated by fear or you know, positivity, what it doesn't matter, that like how much you can actually change and how much you can actually overcome. It's at the same time, it's a little, you know, counterintuitive to what all the modalities are saying, you know, that you need to follow direction, you need to listen to people, you need help, you can't do this on your own. And I think in there, because you're not saying you've done it all on your own, like you're talking about mentors, you're talking about, you know, a group of people. So where do we, you know, need to find the resiliency for ourselves and know what we're capable of doing, and where do we need to let go and sort of, you know, take some guidance? Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So first thing I want to mention is that most people find recovery without 12-step groups. Like I think a lot of people think like the only way to do this is 12 steps, and 12 steps helped me tremendously. But that wasn't the only thing I did. There was 20 other actions, and anyone who came up with me knows that's how I was. And so what I'm saying is natural recovery. People just like, oh crap, my life is a mess. And then finding solutions organically, Google searching, reaching out to shamans and mentors, different people, finding ways and pathways. More people find recovery outside of the 12 steps than they do anywhere else. So we have to understand that most people are finding recovery through, let's call it natural process.
Yeah, most people don't even go to treatment. Like they just, most people, it's like, that was a really bad heroin buzz, I'm never doing that again. Like that's most people. Exactly. But there are those that you know, it will be different next time. You know, yeah, like exactly. Everything's lost and so forth. You know, we have been saying this for years, and I just don't understand why we can't come to terms with this chart, you know, the color coordinated, green, yellow, red, like just, you know, these are low threshold. If you don't like that term, use a different word, but low threshold interventions where you can still use safe supply, consumption sites. This is a little higher threshold. This is, you know, there's a little bit of commitment needed to want to stop using, but if you you know, return using, you know, we'll work with you, meet you where you're at. And this is an environment where abstinence is required, and everyone in the room is striving for abstinence, whether it be 12-step, Jesus, non-12-step, whatever the case may be, and give people the freedom to choose, learn, make mistakes. Like you can't put all of those in one group. Like why can't we do that? And I'm hoping that your journey with your conversations is part of that, where it's like, let people choose. Because you know what it's turning into, and I know it's in the States because I've been to conferences in the States. If you're rich, you're going to, you're probably an abstinence supported environment treatment center. But if you're poor, you're in a room where your roommate's probably going to be smoking crack, because there's no, there's no guidelines really. And I think people should have the right to choose regardless of their financial capital and so forth. So now you wrote this book and you're getting people to understand, their focus and where they're at. So like, is this a workbook? Like, do people actually write things down? And is it
Yes.
intended for just drugs, or is it also part of your conversation that you had at the beginning for people that are addicted to power and other things?
Yeah, exactly. It's for everyone, and it is a
Okay.
workbook. Yes.
Oh,
So
work. Okay.
so the beginning starts as a memoir. I did what I want. I self-published. I'm an entrepreneur. I do what I want. So I self-published my book, and I decided to write a memoir and a self-help book in one. And so the beginning starts out as a memoir, then it turns into a self-help workbook for this Fears Recovery Toolkit. And it is for everyone, because I coach and work with a lot of people that don't have addiction, but they do. They're addicted to food. They're addicted to, like I said, unhappiness, power, control.
Yeah.
These are addictions. So this book helps those people too, because they're a lot of them are universal habits and principles that maybe people don't know, but in the personal development world, they know about them, such as writing a gratitude list and practicing visualization and meditation and stuff like that. Those are all part of the recovery toolkit. So yeah, once again, it's open to all.
Before we get into the second topic that we want to talk to you about, for other people that people get clean and sober or find a recovery journey, and next thing you know, they want to be a recovery coach and an author and a blogger and they want to do all this stuff. So with your own personal experience, like how did you end up, like, did it take you a year? Did you do it in a couple of weeks? How did you get to idea to actually doing the project and publishing your own book and so forth?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people think this happened overnight. Yeah. So I worked at Verizon for 14 years, and I became a top rep at Verizon. And by the way, I was a felon. I caught felony charges at 22. So I had to get this job at corporate Verizon with felonies and deal with that, which I lay out in the book. I tell the whole story. But the bottom line is, like, I had to do that as a felon. As soon as I got the job, I had a tremendous success. But what happened was in 2016, so fentanyl really started to smash New Hampshire in 2015, 2016. We got hit hard. We were one of the worst I think we were the worst state in the country for fentanyl overdose. So what happened was, being so connected to the recovery community, there was people around me, friends I would see at sober living homes dying. And so by 2016, I landed my dream job at Verizon. And I had a hole in the soul 6 months later. 6 months, I was literally empty in my six-figure dream job at Verizon. It wasn't their fault. It was just not what I was supposed to be doing. So I decided in 2017 to leave my job to start Entrepreneurs in Recovery and learn from entrepreneurs who are in recovery, who are very, very successful. So that's the seed got planted from coaches that I was working with and mentors and books I was reading. And then I finally went out to become an entrepreneur in 2017. It's been, almost 4 years, and it's been quite the journey. I wrote 2 books during it. I've done pretty well for myself as a facilitator. My primary business is facilitation, and secondary is coaching. And then obviously,
that's our second topic. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio every Thursday on 100.5 FM, Vancouver Co-op Radio, or if you're watching us, we're on Facebook Live because the studio's closed because of this little thing called COVID, but we're still making it happen. And this is the second topic. Darren, I'm going to let you lead on this one. So we've got another topic here. That's why we wanted you for the full hour.
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting as you're describing, like, just wanting more, wanting that more fulfillment, feeling stuck. I mean, I don't know how many people I've met in recovery who, just sort of only hold on to their clean time, let's say, and that's all their worth really is in their recovery. And I want to know more about the quality of that clean time, like what is your attitude like outside of the meeting? What's your connection with your kids like? What are you doing for hobbies, and what is your definition of success? And I think that sounds like, you know, sort of the train of mind that you went into, and you developed Entrepreneurs in Recovery. I guess my first question is, who in recovery, considering themselves an entrepreneur, is sort of like where do you find these guys? I mean, they're not sharing this at a meeting. Like, how did you just like have to keep, you know, asking deep questions about people? Like, how did you make these connections?
Yeah. So what happened was, all right. So I spoke on a stage at an event called Best Year Ever Live with a guy who wrote a book called The Miracle Morning. His name is Hal Elrod, and he's created quite a movement. Well, he was bringing someone on the stage named Joe Polish. Joe Polish is someone who's an entrepreneur in recovery. He's a very successful person in recovery. So he was someone I started to look at and go, I really want to learn directly from this guy somehow. And so I ended up speaking on the same stage he was speaking on. And I went up to him and I asked him, I said, hey, Joe, I started Entrepreneurs Recovery, which at the time, who even knows what that was, right? But I was like, I got Entrepreneurs Recovery. You got this massive, you know, business that you have. And I'm like, I'd love to stay in contact and get some advice from you. So I started to reach out to people like Joe Polish. He was one of the people that I reached out to. But what I was doing though, I got to back it up. For years, I was going to sober living residences and I would run workshops that would help to empower the men there and the women there to start to use these personal development tools I was learning to live their best life. And it was working because I could check up on these guys 6 months later, 3 months later, and see how they're doing. Some of them started businesses. I mean, there's a bunch of people that when I went and spoke and ran these workshops, they started businesses. So they realized, like, just because I have charges and just because of this, I'm not limited to work at McDonald's. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying I can actually have more options. I can be an entrepreneur. I can be a lawyer. There's certain things I can do even with a record. So I found these people just going down the street, driving an hour, going 10 minutes, going to the sober living residences and running workshops, that there was a lot of people that don't want to necessarily be an entrepreneur. They're just entrepreneurial. So they want to live a self-directed life. They want to bet on themselves to live their best life. And that's where I found people. There's a lot of those people. And yeah, so it was a combination of me finding these mentors who were actually doing it and then bringing it to the people.
That's amazing. I mean, I remember hearing so often, like, you know, you can't do what you want, you know, your will isn't what's going to guide you in the right direction. And, you know, I didn't realize it till years in recovery. Like I live to do what I want, but it's just on a different plane from when I was stuck in addiction, you know, like, so I'm saying the same thing. And I think a lot of people want to do that, but they don't know. I think the implementations of certain, you know, necessities in their life that they can live successfully and do whatever they want, you know, where they're not hurting people and nobody, you know, it's not on a selfish self-centered.
Why would they too, right? Why would they? Who's teaching that? Who's teaching people how to live their best life? Who's teaching people to not be in a spin cycle, to go back into rehab over and over and over again? Yeah. Who's teaching that? So this is where, like, when we opened up, like, having conversations that matter with the people who are going through it. They're not going to tell you they want to go through and relapse and go through the hell that they're going through. No, they want new solutions. They want new options, but there's no education for it. So that's where we need that revolution, that radical change that starts with one person at a time, grassroots, you know?
You know, I was at my home group the other night, and the topic was inspiration, and that's something that actually had never been a topic before. And this is what I'm seeing here. It's like, you're using entrepreneurialism. It's like, yeah, okay, now you need to find zest for life. Like, yeah, like that's what this is about. Like, it's not about not using. Like, we have this saying here, like, the show's put on by a treatment center, and one of the biggest things is, like, this isn't about not using. Like, if it's about not using, like, like, life will be really boring. Like, it's because, you know, you need something, and that's it. And then believing in yourself that you can do more. You can go back to school, you can get a raise, you can be that union leader at the trade shop, you know, and because you get all these people that's like, I don't want anyone to know I'm in rehab, and I don't want anyone to know I'm in recovery, and next thing you know, they get inspired and like, oh my God, I can help people, and they become, you know, the trades rep for anybody that's got a mental health or addiction issue, and you just see people flourish, you know. And it's you know, recovery with inspiration. It's recovery with entrepreneurialism. So how do you inspire someone because there's the doom and gloom. Oh, and I'm not calling them victims. It's a real thing, like doom and gloom. I just stopped using, you over the detox period, obviously, and now you're at this place raw. How do you inspire people to be an entrepreneur?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was contracted to work with a 90-day treatment center, and that's a lot different than going to a sober living residence, and it's a lot different than going to a bunch of entrepreneurs. So when you go to a sober living, or when you go to a treatment center, you have people with dual diagnosis. They're bipolar, they got drug, they got substance abuse disorder, all these different things. And I'm coming in and I'm running 90-minute workshops, 60-minute workshops during their day to have them tap into resilience, set goals and intentions, do the things that they're not really being shown. But you know what I found? It works. And it's actually, a story is actually in my book featuring a guy named Vincent, who was one of the men who was through 3 of these workshops I ran. And this guy now is over 2 years in recovery. He's going to become an expressive therapist. So it's the setting, right? So if I go to those settings, I run similar workshops. They're a little different because you need a lot more trauma-informed care. You got to understand that trauma is going to be shared during that workshop. So, I have a master's in mental health counseling. I have, trauma-informed care. I know about that. I've been trained in it. So I know how to handle that. But when you go into a sober living residence, it's the most exciting thing in the world. That's why I do what I do. I'm going there in a couple of weeks. I'm going to bring my books. I'm going to come in. I'm going to bring my flip chart. I'm going to spend 2 hours with those individuals, and they're going to be light on fire. And there's going to be some people there that are not going to want to participate because it's not 100% buy-in. And those people usually after pull me aside and tell me what's going on. Hey, I got busted for dealing fentanyl. I'm going away for 36 months and want to just talk to you. All right, let's talk about it. Because there's no excuses. Like, it doesn't matter what you tell me. I've heard it all. I've seen men with facing 36 months guaranteed prison time not do a day in prison. Now, sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't. But I've just seen too many. I've had thousands of conversations with people in addiction recovery, not with white hats, psychologists, government. No, with the people who are actually suffering. So you learn a lot by just listening to the people. You get their voices and you go, wow, if they just have a little bit of education, a little bit of hope, maybe this book and this journal, that can make all the difference. That's what I found.
I love, and it just goes back to that title of your book, If Not You, Then Who. I mean, how many times I've had that same fantasy, this is just what I got to do now. And they're going to tell me what my next, I'm going to be told what my life outcome is going to be. I'm just waiting to find out. Like, to have that idea that, okay, you're facing a negative consequence, let's say, what are you going to do about it? Here's some options, like, I mean, so many of us are we don't think we have the resiliency within. We think we lost it. We think we were never born with it, or it's just been killed inside of us. And I mean, nothing like a difficult situation, to find out what you're made of. I've always thought, this is the important work, I believe, under whatever, modality we're in, that recovery has these conversations, at some point, like, what next? And it's not like, well, you can be an astronaut if you want to, like, not those types of conversations, but that you are in charge of most of your outcomes, and whether you're not, you're still in charge of your attitude towards each outcome. And I love that. And I'm just reading that, part of the Entrepreneurs in Recovery is building communities of recovery is an essential part of our future. What does that look like? What's the building of a community of recovery?
Yeah, so I've started to do that in the state of Georgia. Georgia brought me in 2020, all throughout 2020 during COVID. We did it all virtually. It was supposed to be in person, but they brought me in 2020 to help to build communities of recovery, which are recovery community organizations throughout the state of Georgia. So it's getting people who are executive directors of RCOs, recovery community organizations, who are actually helping people for free, with free services, to come to their place to learn about expressive art, to learn about yoga, to learn about entrepreneurship, to learn about personal growth and development. And so they, so that's one example of building communities of recovery. Another example is venture capitalists coming together, who some of them are in recovery, saying, we're going to buy up property. We're going to buy these big buildings. We're going to have huge recovery ecosystems where people have a job inside of this ecosystem. They grow their own food in this ecosystem. They have a place to live. These are being developed right now as we speak. So there's a lot of
you have to send us details about that. I'd love to learn more about that. That's for sure.
Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
Georgia's doing big things. And
so if you know anyone that you can get us in connected with, we'd love to see some plans and get some of that going on over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to.
So Entrepreneurs in Recovery is a Facebook page, or is it a group? Is it a page or a group?
Yeah. So
or both.
There's a Facebook group called If Not You, Then Who. So If
Okay.
Not You, Then Who is the
so
group.
That's the book. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And then you got jesseharless.com. So you can take a look at that as well. And then facebook.com/entrepreneurs in recovery. You can get all of those links on the link that will be republished on this podcast on our Facebook page, Talk Recovery Radio, or Talk Recovery Vancouver. Sorry. Well, what a great show. It's always great to talk to somebody that understands like recovery is more than just not using drugs. And if we can get that, because when I was new, I had no idea what recovery was. Like, I just thought, drugs, that's it, and it took, some people like you and other like-minded people to say, yeah, like, we talk about drugs for maybe one day. After that, it's about everything else. So it's a huge gift, and I hope people watching this show, because all the moms that call us, they're always talking about, my son does drugs, and it's like, yeah, but there's everything else, and that's what we're going to help your son with. And really, I hope the healthcare system takes a look at that rather than just focusing on the physical harms. We focus on the whole person. It's the only way we're going to get out of this overdose crisis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jesse Harless, again, thank you so much for coming on Talk Recovery today on Vancouver Co-op Radio and watching live on Talk Recovery Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio every Thursday. Darren and I, talk about what we talk about. And don't forget the petition. Go to recoverydaybc.ca. It's still out there. We need to get a retraction on those comments made about bed-based services because they were wrong, and Interior Health needs to know about that. So sign the petition. And other highlight news. Sorry, Jesse, just want to let everybody know we've got a big Recovery Day meeting coming up. So we're going to find out what's going on with Recovery Day, which is going to be taking place on September 4th this year. So stay tuned to the show and we'll let you know. Okay, bye, everybody. See you next Thursday. Darren, see you later. Jesse, thank you for being on our show.